Hello, this is Lori Michelle with Running on Love with God on Blog Talk Radio. And now tonight we're recording on Uvu for YouTube and Facebook and all forms of social media. And I have my co-host with me, Anna Marie Lucas from Chicago, Illinois. Hello, Anna Marie. And I'm in Israel. Hi. I'm broadcasting from Israel. And this program is called Running on Love with God because I was awakened in April of 2009 to the voice of none other than our Creator. My life changed irrevocably, and here I am almost 8 years later, now broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio and on YouTube, Facebook, all forms of social media to share my gift and the messages and the wisdom that I'm receiving to help us all get this right. This is the work of world peace because we individually have to get this right in order for us all to come together in peace the way we're meant to be. Tonight's program is an interesting program, and I posted a picture, and I'll show it one more time. And it's about filling our children's suitcase with our baggage. And I posted this picture of a cute little boy, and he's dragging his pants on the ground. And it says, it's backwards on this camera. Isn't that interesting? But it says, our children come with a life package of their own to work on. Don't fill their suitcase with your baggage. And he has a gigantic suitcase he's carrying out the door. And the meaning behind it is that we come into this world with our own special package that we have to work on. We are spiritual beings, and we're having a physical experience. And we're entrusted to parents and family and friends to journey with them. But we all have our own package to work on. And about a month or so ago, I posted another image on Facebook, and it's this image of a blurry woman with a hand. And the camera is reversing the text, so I'll read it to you. But it says, God draws us a life vision. We add the ink and definition, define everything with love and God. And the meaning behind this is we have a journey that we're individually responsible for. We have soul corrections that we're all working on. We all have our different package, but we all come together as family and friends and associates. And so sometimes we project our own issues that are our corrections on other people, and other people do that to us. And I'll give a small example, and then, Anna Marie, you and I will talk about it, and you'll ask me questions to get in more detail. But I'll give you my own personal example. I have, for some reason, and it comes from my childhood probably, a bugaboo about disorderly homes and messiness and messy counters. And when things become messy, I become very irritable. And I have to watch it because things may not be as messy as I am interpreting them, but I'm in a bad mood, it's hot, I come home, let's say from work, and one of my children left things on the counter and things in the sink, and I blow up. I blow up and I start projecting onto my children what's really my issue. Maybe they should not have left the kitchen sink dirty, but because I'm in a bad mood and because it's baggage of mine that I can't tolerate anything in the sink, I blow it out of proportion. And I perhaps, God forbid, I'm not saying I've ever done this, God forbid, I hope not, call them a name. You slob, I can't believe it. This is how arguments start. You project it onto someone, you call them a name, they didn't deserve it, or maybe they had some culpability, but they fight back and fire back whatever their baggage is. And before you know it, you have a full-blown argument. Now, this could happen with parents and children. This can happen between spouses. And the point of this program is if we can't get along as family as parents and children, as spouses, as friends, how would we ever come to an agreement with Middle East peace? We have to start with ourselves, and we have to start to discern. So I have a little prop, and then we'll start talking, Anna Marie. I was thinking about this today. I was eating one of these. This is called a date. And I don't know if you eat these, but these are delicious, sweet fruit of the tree. And we eat them a lot in Israel. But I was warned by one of my daughters, Mom, you can't just eat the date. You got to peel it open. I'm not going to do it. It's messy. And you got to take the pit out. Then you got to hold it up to the light and examine it, because there could be bugs and worms. You don't know what's inside. You've got to check your fruit thoroughly. So that's what I'm going to ask everybody to start to learn to do. Before you shoot off your mouth, before you open a conversation where you're going to complain to someone about something, treat it like a date. And peel it apart and discern, where is this coming from? Is the kitchen really messy? Or am I just having a bad day and projecting it onto one of my children? And now I'll open the conversation with you, Anna Marie, and let's have a real discussion about this.
Okay, how do you prevent yourself from being walked all over if you want to keep, in your example, a neat house? Why is it your baggage? Why isn't it their baggage?
You mean, why couldn't they just clean up the house? Well, that's yeah. In other words, maybe I was correct. There shouldn't be anything in the sink. Maybe it's appropriate for me to want the sink clean. And maybe I've asked 10 times and they never listen to me. So maybe it's appropriate. But to lose my temper is not appropriate. To lose my temper, and it happens, and let me tell you, I have lost my temper before. But in a calm way, the better way to handle these situations is to build your boundaries, to make your rules. Everybody should have their rules. Everybody has hot buttons that they don't want pressed. And so if you're in a living relationship with someone, you need to express that in a calm way when it's not a hot topic and say, look, this is my hot button. I need a neat house. And if you break that rule for me, I don't feel comfortable, I feel unhappy, and it's not going to be good for us. So you have that discussion in a calm way. But when it comes up repeatedly, it's real easy for your tempers to flare. So you have rules and boundaries. With children, it's easy. Okay, you break my rule, you put money into the jar. Now it just cost you $10. And there's no fighting because they know they broke the rule. This is not so much a program about parenting as it is, Anna Marie, about projection. We have issues that we're working on. I'll give another one, not about something simple like cleaning the house, but like being called a name, being told you are self-centered and selfish. And you're not. Maybe you didn't buy an appropriate gift on an appropriate occasion. And let's say it's a husband and wife. And the wife, it's her birthday. And the husband bought her a gift, but didn't spend a lot of money, didn't maybe take a lot of time, but it pushed a button in her because when she was growing up, she never got an appropriate birthday present. No one really even said happy birthday. So it's a hot button for her that if you don't buy me a special present on my birthday, you don't love me and you're selfish. Because maybe she was raised with lots of selfish people. But maybe he thought he got a perfectly acceptable gift. But now she's inflamed and she's projecting. you're selfish, you don't care about me. Do you see how the projection can escalate in that moment where he just thought he bought the most perfect gift? But she has this baggage that she's bringing into the relationship.
Then what should she do to prevent spreading her baggage or prevent giving him her baggage to carry?
This is a very complicated, this is human nature. And the best thing that everyone can do in every moment is examine and discern. Like the date. You don't want to eat worms, and you don't want to throw bugs and worms and garbage at someone else. You have to pause and contemplate. And I speak with Hashem. That's what this program is. It's running on love with God. I hear him, and I speak with him all the time. And he says, he's shown me, he's reflected back to me what it is that I do when I meet and greet a controversy or a problem. And I'm not saying that all my relationships are perfect. I wound up divorced. So obviously, relationships do end, even for the best, with the best intentions. But he shows me how I handle relationships with people. And he says that the way I handle things is the way humans are supposed to behave. I automatically, like a computer, start to discern. Did I do that? Am I selfish? Is that the other person's issue? And I start unraveling, what am I looking at here? The best question that people can ask is, what's really going on here? What's this really all about? Instead of reacting, the worst thing that you can do in any conversation is react. With practice, this can become habitual. When you say something to me and it stings, where did that come from? Why did she say that? Was it about me? Was it coming from her? And maybe it deserves a question. Well, Anna Marie, what do you mean by that? Do you understand? You have to pause and contemplate. Let's talk about a specific example. Give me a specific real-life example instead of...
Well, those were specific real-life examples. When I read your introduction, it sounded like you were going... To me, baggage is like if a parent didn't achieve a certain career, then they would urge their child, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. That's what I saw as handing off baggage. So is that an example that we can use where baggage, a parent thinks they know?
Yes. Baggage is all kinds of baggage. And let's talk specifically about parents stuffing their children's suitcase with their baggage. When let's say it's a parent who never achieved and maybe didn't get a college degree, and it's a bugaboo for them, and they need their child to graduate college. So they're constantly pushing and cajoling. Well, you need to get straight A's, and you need to go to college, and you need to go to a good college, and that's not good enough, and they're never good enough. So their own low self-esteem and their own inadequacies and their own perceived failures are now the baggage of their children. Now the child feels they can never please their parent. No matter how many A's I get, it's never good enough. I went to a good college, but now I don't really want to be a lawyer. I'd rather work at the local coffee shop. I don't want the pressure. And now my father thinks I'm a failure because I'm not the lawyer that he thought I should be. That's a real classic, right?
Right, exactly. And as a parent, what should you do when you feel you have really good advice or guidance for your child? You can't withhold it, can you, in the interest of not spreading your baggage?
Right. I have 3 children, and there's a lot of poetry written about children there's a poem I remember, and I can't recite it, that children come through you, they're not of you. We don't own them. And that's how you have to treat your children. You need to guide them. You need to listen to them. You need to help them find themselves and their journey and their path and fill them with self-confidence. But you have to pause and pull back when you feel that you're pushing your agenda on them. And I'll give you an example in my own life. One of my children, and I won't mention names, I won't even mention gender. I have both sons and daughters. One of my children is exceptionally brilliant. Actually, all 3 are brilliant, but one of them was on the Ivy League track. Could have definitely gone to Ivy League. Actually, definitely, maybe more than one of them could have. But there was one in particular, and I guided this particular child. I'm going to be careful not to mention the gender or anything about my children, but the spiritual aspect of this particular child was very, very important. And at the Ivy League school that he was, there I go, I just blew it.
He or she. He or she
was looking at, he wasn't going, it was my son. He wasn't going to get nurtured in the right way. I tried. I can't, I'm human. I can't help it. So when the time came and he was trying to decide, one of my friends, who was also a parent, whose sons could never even dream about going to Ivy League, told me, "What are you, crazy? You've got to tell him he must go to Ivy League. There's no question I would force my son to go to Ivy League. And I had this argument with this parent. Now, that parent can remain nameless. You'll never know who it was. But it was this whole argument, and I didn't argue with this parent. I just said, well, I just don't agree with you. This is not my journey. This is my son's journey. And he'll figure it out. He'll figure out his life. He needs to nurture and feel comfortable and have all parts of his soul being nurtured. Not just the intellectual part, and not just the money part, and not just the, I need to get the best job and make the most money part. And so I didn't tell my son what to do. My son eventually made his own choice. But what I'm saying is, in a situation like that, many, many parents, and many parents might listen to this and say, you're nuts. If your child is Ivy League quality, they go to Ivy League. There's no question, and they don't have a choice. And I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. How many students go to Ivy League that you hear about that commit suicide? God forbid, God forbid. Oh my God, terrible. The pressure, they went, I don't know what the history was of those children who do that, but your child needs to make their own choices, and you need to guide them, but you can't strong arm them. I don't believe that, and I'm guided that that's part of the problem with a lot of people suffering from depression and low self-esteem and all kinds of psychological issues is because as they were growing up, a lot of the pressure is heaved on them through parents, through siblings, through teachers. They make offhanded comments, and you wind up suffering.
Also, in your introduction, you said that you would talk about how to tell when a problem lies within ourselves. And how do we recognize if a problem is being thrust upon us and is not ours at all? So if you want to take the point of view of the child who's being told you must go to Ivy League, how can the child recognize that that's not their baggage?
Very difficult. It's very difficult for a child to wake up and understand that. And that's what my hope is for putting communications out like this, to wake up not only children, if they're going to listen on the internet, but parents, older people who are responsible for our young. Because, Anna Marie, the statistics are startling. The number 2 cause of death among young adults is suicide. So you have to look at what is the source of this. You have to look at why are so many young adults so deeply depressed? Where are we going wrong? And not only as a society, but as an individual, we only really truly have control over ourselves. We can't control other people. So we have to look at our speech. How are we talking to our children? I have heard parents call their children names. What are you, stupid? What are you, an idiot? I've heard parents literally use that language to their children. It's horrifying. Is the parent a demon and a nasty person? No, probably on a good day, it's one of the most wonderful human beings on the face of the earth. But they're carrying old tapes and garbage that they accumulated in their lifetime, and now they're projecting it and heaving it on to someone else.
So how can you tell when you've crossed the line between giving good advice and guidance and help and between loading somebody up with baggage?
The way that you can do this and the way that I approach things, now that I have this communication, this free-flowing speech and conversation with Hashem, God, I can tell you how He is. When I am stuck and I don't know which way to turn and I reach for Him, He responds by asking me questions. That's the best way to give guidance, because you're pulling and you're drawing out the answers from your loved one, from your child, from your spouse. And very often, if I feel down and depressed and I can't figure out which way to go, Hashem, God, will ask me question after question, and it's like Hansel and Gretel and cookie crumbs. And He asks me more thought-provoking questions, and He gets me thinking. And eventually, my own soul, my inner self, finds the answer. You see, we're a lot wiser than we give ourselves credit for. And when we're depressed and we're uncomfortable, it's our soul in pain saying, something's not right. I'm not in the right profession. I'm not in the right relationship. Something's wrong. And when you ask enough of the correct questions, you come up with better answers. And that's what a good parent and a good friend does, is ask the right questions. You can give your opinion of what you see going on, but at the end of the day, the decisions have to come from yourself.
Okay, so you said you were going to talk about how to discern when our decisions are flawed, and that's exactly the answer right there, is to keep asking the questions and see what makes you feel comfortable, what feels like it's a better, more true answer.
Right. And when you're in a argument or in a confrontation with a friend or a relative or a coworker, listen to the speech. Listen to what's going on. And you can pick out when it's something that's being thrown at you and heaved on you, as opposed to something that you're really responsible for. In the end, we all are relationships and we're connected. So we all have a participation. But I'll give you a real world example. I had a friend who was having a difficulty with an in-law. And the in-law was very, very difficult, very condescending, very argumentative. And the answer was, what was going on here? Kind of pull back and say, I didn't really do anything to this in-law. Why is this in-law after me? Constantly saying negative things about me. I'm constantly fighting, and I really don't think that I'm doing anything wrong. So you pull back and say, well, what could really be going on here? And after discussing this with this friend, we analyzed it and said that she was married to this person's only son. So this person was feeling like she lost her child. Instead of gaining a daughter or daughter-in-law, she's losing something. So she's in attack mode. So when you can view your hard relationships from a point of view of compassion and put yourself in the other person's shoes, why are they so angry at me? What is it about me that's pushing their buttons? And approach it from a position of compassion, you have a better chance of healing the relationship. So we discussed how she could approach it and be even more friendly and more loving, and showing that you're not losing your son, you're gaining a daughter, right? And
right.
I'm not sure where that relationship is, but we can't always just say about every relationship, oh, well, they're dysfunctional and it's their problem, it's their problem. We all have problems. And there are relationships, Anne-Marie, where we simply need to distance ourselves and say, you know what? It's never worked. It's not going to work. It's not good for us, and you need to walk away. And there are relationships that you have to do that with. But you need to get along with someone. So compassion, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, pausing, discerning, pulling things apart like the date, and looking at it. It's not an easy thing to do like this, but if you get in the habit of it, it becomes easier. It's like building a muscle, like you're exercising a muscle.
Going back to something you said earlier, what is the difference between reaching out to a friend for help and burdening a friend with our own issues? Or is that too long a question?
There are times when we could feel like people are taking advantage. Oh, and we only have 90 seconds left. Well, if it feels like an intrusion, it's usually that they're going too far. In other words, we all want to be helpful, Anna-Marie, and we want to give of ourselves. But if someone's constantly taking and constantly asking something of us and not returning, and it's always about them, you need to either, I have 60 seconds left, you need to politely put boundaries up is really what you have to do. Well, that's a whole conversation for another day, but we're at the end of our program, and what a great question to end on. And I want to thank you, Anna-Marie, for your great questions, and I want to ask for support for this program. This program, Running on Love with God, is part of the work of World Peace, and I'm a founder of the charity Running on Love, and you can go to runningonlove.org and donate and support the work of coming together, because it is through love and charity and education that we will all learn how to get it right. So I wish you peace on earth in our time. God bless you, and peace on earth in our time. Join us again next week.